For USCFootball.com, I'm Keely Eure here with Dan Weber for instant analysis of day one of USC's fall camp. Football is back in. We're back at Howard Jones Field. There's a lot of details of what happened in the first practice, but let's go overall. What were your general thoughts from today?
Well, I think there's a sense of urgency, and without a doubt. I mean, they've got 25 practices after today. It'll be 4 weeks till the UNLV opener. They've got to decide who's going to be the quarterback, and today made it more interesting with the level of play of all three quarterbacks, especially Matt Fink and Jack Sears, who kind of had not the easiest time of it in spring ball. I thought they both looked good today. I thought Jack Sears really had a good practice, and I just thought, T. Martin said, sense of urgency, not a lot of time. And I know JT has been quoted as saying he realizes how short how small the window is, how short the time frame is to win the job. And although Clay kind of extended it a little bit today, I asked him, can you get it decided in camp, which is the first 2 weeks before they start class? He pretty much made it clear that's not happening. And he gave himself said definitely going to make the decision before. He's not going to the UNLV game with the decision, game time decision. But he gave himself to maybe 20 or 25 practices, which would be all of them, before he makes the decision. So it doesn't look like it's something that's going to, happen. Say they've got the mock game week 2 weeks before the opener and then the game week practice, and it's not going to happen so that they know who the quarterback is, let's say, going into the mock game week. That doesn't look like it's going to happen at all.
Yeah. It's worth noting that in his first go against the first-team defense in the 7-on-7 period, JT Daniels threw a 40-yard touchdown to Michael Pittman. So it was a nice little, hey, here's JT, he's here. But you mentioned it already, but you pressed Helton on that time frame of how can you name a quarterback in that short amount of time? Do you think they can, if you're JT, do you think you can make that much of an impression in that short of a time?
Yeah, I think you'll do it. Not just with what happens in practice, but, in the quarterback room and the understanding of the offense. When Clay, talks about JT, he talks about his accuracy and, it's not too big for him and how his knowledgeability and all of that kind of thing. But I think it'll be the whole picture and looking at how the players react to you, and it'll be moving the ball. And he did have, some of the best throws. He also had the one interception where, he saw Michael Pittman coming open, but Jenny Harris saw the play better than Michael Pittman did. And by the time, the ball was there, Jenny was there, and it beat Michael. And that's the kind of thing. And Jenny made an absolutely great play.
Yeah.
I mean, he made, I think Michael Pittman called it an Jenny play. And he just knew, the former quarterback and wide receiver knew where the ball was going,
yeah.
He thought. And he kind of suckered him outside and then came back inside. And Michael kind of didn't make the best pivot to get back to the ball. And before he got back there, Jenny was there. So, good learning lesson, for JT. But on the whole, Clay said he had a great day. And he did, had a really good day. He's really comfortable, but honestly, Jack Sears just had a terrific day and threw a deep touchdown, and very impressed with the quarterbacks today. This wasn't the quarterback group that we saw in the spring.
Mm-hmm. When Helton was asked what other freshmen impressed him, he said the two wide receivers, Amon-Ra St. Brown and Devon Williams. And if you listen to us during player run practices in the summer, that's who we noted. Those two don't look like freshmen, and that's what Helton said. They didn't look like it was their first fall camp practice today.
No, and he's hearing the players talk about it, because the players will go back after, the PRPs, and they'll be, telling the coaches what they're seeing. And that's all the players wanted to talk about this summer with those two guys and how they didn't look like freshmen, didn't act like freshmen. I thought Clay had a good description of Amon-Ra today. He said he's so physical, so thick, so strong, and yet he's got little man skills. He's got all the, the ability that a little guy has, but in a really strong package. And and then Devon just looks like one of those, really big-time athletes. Big, can run, catch the ball. I thought one time today he probably would have had, say, a 35-yard, completion down to the 5-yard line from JT, who threw a back shoulder ball. But Devon is not used to catching. If that would have been Amon-Ra, it probably would have been an easy catch at the 5. But as Michael said, that happens to you once, and then you realize if the DB's here and I'm here, JT's going to throw it right up my back. And Devon didn't anticipate that, so he kept running. And the ball didn't get caught, but he would have had an easy catch. And JT threw it exactly where he was supposed to. But it just takes players doing that in practice enough to realize exactly what the read is in the middle of a play like that, and you make an easy catch.
Now, one of the key words we heard from Helton, we already said urgency. The other key word was depth. Helton said he was impressed by how much depth this team has, especially on defense. And you got to talk to defensive coordinator Clancy Pendergast, and he's not used to having this much depth on the defense.
Yeah, I mean, he helps out with the DBs at times. And I said, what's it like to be looking at, 14 guys who look like they can play? And he started smiling and saying, yeah, I mean, it's fun. Haven't gotten to do that. And he said, actually, we kind of have that at all 3 levels on the defense when you got those kind of numbers. And so he said, but I liked it. Clancy, a big smile on his face, and he said, that's fun. So we'll see how this works. This, hasn't been the situation that they've been in recent years. So to have these kind of numbers with this kind of talent, he said, it's just not numbers, but you got guys with a lot of talent that you've got to choose from. So they're doing a lot of coaching on that defensive side to get guys up to speed. And Clay basically said the one big takeaway for him, when I asked him about the Ohio State game and guys talking about the cultures and all of how much that had to change the game, and Clay talked about the bad taste in his mouth, but he said the one thing you take away from the Ohio State game is how much depth they had on defense and how they got those guys in the game. They'd play 4 plays, they'd have the next group come in and play 4, and he said that next group was as good as the group that they just took out. And he said we have to get there. If you want to win, you want to get to the playoffs, and you want to win a national championship, we have to be able to do what we saw Ohio State do last year. I will say this, they're not backing off of saying things like we want to be in the playoffs and we want to be able to win a national championship. I mean, that's good news. I mean, I like to hear that. At USC, you want coaches and players who think that's what we do here.
Yeah, but you pushed back. You said, well, what's the tangible difference? What are you seeing differently to be that playoff team, and what do you have to say?
Well, he said how fast they went at practice and how, clearly they're doing things to speed things up when they're doing the 2-spot where they're 7-on-7 going both directions. Yeah. And so you got 2 quarterbacks and 2 sets of, offensive and defensive guys, although he said that's going to go away by you've got another practice without pads, just the helmet. And then you got 2 practices Monday, Tuesday in shells, and then Wednesday's full pads. And Clay said by the time they go to full pads, 7-on-7 is going to go away. And it'll be much more 11-on-11, much more blitz, against the guys. They won't be just throwing against air, or they won't be throwing against, the 7-on-7s. They're going to be doing a lot of 11-on-11. So I think that's some of the takeaway from the Ohio State game is more live, full team action. And we didn't see as much of that. The only, maybe negative in terms of that was when you emphasize special teams a lot, you end up kind of stopping practice. Today it was like 2 big stops in practice, and you have 40 or 50 guys standing around while, one group is doing something. So, I mean, it's not easy to figure out how to work on special teams and how to emphasize them and how to get them right. But that is kind of something you have to work around a little bit, I think, because they got off to, I thought, a really good start. And then they went into some punt work where, again, there's a lot of standing around and, lining guys up and doing that kind of thing. So, that will probably be something you need to think about.
But I think if you're going to do special teams, I think that when you're going no pads, that's one of the days to do it. But you mentioned going 2 7-on-7s at the same time. one, a culture change, two, a product of the quarterback battle. But Helton also said that helps other guys who they're looking at get more reps. And he said that he's already heard from the players they like having more repetition. So how is that helping the players in that sense?
Well, I mean, if you're a young linebacker, if you're a young defensive back, you got double the amount of reps. And so you got 14 defensive backs who can play. Doing two at a time is great. I mean, it's not as good for us because you got one group coming this way, but you got the other group going that way, and we're not seeing the group going that way. So today, for example, I think Matt Fink for the whole time and Jack Sears for most of the time were going that way. We were seeing JT coming this way. So, as far as from our perspective, we may be able to tell you more about what JT did than necessarily what, obviously they're videoing it, and they're going to be able to see everything that, that happened. But we may not get as good a picture. You hear people saying, was that a completion or what? It was in the shade and down the other end. So, I think they're trying to make up for maybe some of the shortcomings last year.
Yeah.
And, we'll see. When they get to full pads, then we'll really have a sense of what does this mean.
Mm-hmm. As far as injuries go, Helton said he'll sleep better tonight because Stephen Carr was back out on the field after not participating in spring or summer. He was full speed today, so Helton definitely says he's gonna sleep better tonight, and I think USC fans are gonna sleep better too.
Yeah, I was surprised. The more, the longer practice went, the more they used him, the more they threw to him, the more they let him run the ball. I mean, he was just soaked through. I mean, he worked up, a big time sweat, and that was great. I mean, I just think to get to see him. We also got to see him out there at the same time as Cedric Ware. And Cedric is a running back and Stephen lining up as a pass receiver. And I like the idea of USC having those two guys on the field at the same time. I thought Cedric looked awfully good. He's looked awfully good all summer. I just thought, he had a couple of breakaways, and he's just worked so hard on doing what Rojo did, which is, take it to the house if you get the chance. And he was more of a, until this year, more of a slasher and a short yardage, tough run guy. But he looks like he's going to really work on being that guy that can hit the, home run. And but I really like the idea of having Cedric and Stephen Carr on the field at the same time. That would be, I think that would be pretty challenging for a defense if you can get the ball to Stephen, quickly and then turn him loose. He's I mean, it looks good. I mean, they're very thrilled today about Stephen.
Yeah. No
question.
Some other quick injury reports. JT Fele was not. He didn't participate. His ankle was wrapped because of a foot laceration. Yeah. Solomon Tuilapupu was not practicing because he's still recovering from his foot surgery that he had in the offseason. Wale Batiku still recovering from his hip surgery. And there's one person that I'm forgetting right now.
Randall Grimes.
A little
bit back issue.
And then Daniel Matabebe. He did some light work today. Helton said it was a good sign because Daniel had no pain. So they're easing back Daniel slowly.
Well, I was impressed. Helton knew that he was in 9 different sessions, so he knew exactly how many periods he got to work today. He's you don't always notice him now because he is a slimmer trimmer, Daniel Matabebe, but he changes the look of that tight end group. And Josh Fallow, and whatever he did that day that we saw him, where they were, all the players were, commiserating with him, and he got, driven off here and barely could walk on crutches. He looks like nothing happened to him. Yeah. So whatever that was, he's way past it as far as what we can tell today.
So not much we can fully glean from one no padded practice, but any final thoughts before you wrap it up?
Well, I like when Clay says the veteran guys have the other part of that Ohio State culture changing kind of moment is what we saw at Pac-12 Media Day with Cameron Smith and Porter Gustin, and we see it with Marvell Tell, and we see it with Iman Marshall, is these guys really want to have a good senior year. Yeah. And Toa Lobendon, and I think we've seen a bunch of guys who've just are very determined that, whatever happened last year and they came up short, they're not going to let happen again. So, and Clay gives them the credit, and I do too. So if you have a group where those guys are really, really determined, to make it happen, I think you got a chance. And so we're seeing that. There's no question about it. I mean, I love Eamon Marshall's attitude, or Marvell Tell, who's not been a guy who's been very, demonstrative, and he's much more, feeling what it means to be a senior. And I like that a lot.
Mm-hmm. All right, that's going to wrap it up for day one of USC's fall camp. For Dan Weber, I'm Keely Eure. For more, check out uscfootball.com.